Here's your mail, sir. Thanks, Pete. Say, what you got in the bag? Nothing. Just a little present for your kid. Grab a blanket. Turn off your lights. Mailman from hell. The Mailman. True story of murder. 1996. I lived in Astoria in Ravenswood houses in the 90s. I was friends with the mailman, who was a really cool guy. His name was Rich. What happened after New Year's was crazy. And for months, I saw this man deteriorate into a killer. Rich was an all-around cool guy. He was good-looking, charismatic, a mailman who delivered mail around our neighborhood. His baby's mom lived in my projects in the Ravenwoods houses. He would say hi to everyone, and on Christmas, no matter how poor people were, they often left him a tip in cash. Everyone liked him. Rich had a dark side to him that involved a fight where he beat his baby's mom and got a restraining order. He broke her orbital bone during an argument. During that year, his girlfriend would often walk around with 2 black eyes or a swollen cheek. He was beating her. He did not show up for 2 weeks because of some departmental procedure suspending him till they found out what the case was about. I saw him 2 weeks later, and Rich was less cheery. The new year brought him a child support garnishment for his kid and legal problems, not to mention problems regarding custody. A few months passed, and I saw him staring into the distance of the hot sun. He did not look too good. His long stares would be longer and longer, and it would take his name being called 3 times for him to respond. Everyone around heard he had broken a court order and beat his girlfriend again. Rich was not the cheery, charismatic man we saw, but something darker. He stopped saying hello to people. One day, coming home from work, I see a Telemundo truck, along with Eyewitness News Channel 7 and NY1 News van. Rich killed his wife and 7-year-old and 13-year-old stepson. Both their heads were chopped off. The kid's penis was found in their mouths. Both heads were in a closet. They lived 2 buildings down from me, and my friend was their neighbor. Cops sealed off the building. Rich tried to slit his wrist but failed and was taken by an ambulance. After detectives left the crime scene 2 weeks later, and everything was concluded, we then snuck in through my neighbor who lived next door. All the action took place in the kitchen. It was like blood was dragged from the living room to the bedroom. The bedroom had a broken door, and yet we did not go inside. This was before crime scene cleanup came. I had nightmares for weeks. For a week, the boy who lived in my building, who was 7, was friends with Rich's kid. The kid had become traumatized after he had heard about his friend's death. His mother encouraged me to talk to him, since he looked up to me as a big brother. I remember he asked me, "Why do people hurt kids?" I could only say, "Because they are sick in their heads." He sobbed in front of me, and I comforted him. From that point on, I had trouble sleeping for a while. Going into the actual murder scene made things worse. I will always remember a blank stare when I joked around with him. It was like he was staring through me. The Mailman. Okay, so before I begin, this story took place in the mid-70s, in a small suburb in New Jersey, about 30 minutes away from New York City. And it is not about me, but my uncle. As you may know, the 70s was a sort of carelessness period that my uncle and other members of my family describe as something society will never have again. People never locked their doors, children played amongst themselves with minimal supervision, and everyone had a general trust of one another, something that is rare in today's world for good reason. Now that I've given you some background, on to the story. It was the summer of 1975, and my uncle was 12 at the time. He would constantly be playing outside in the backyard or down the street with friends, but my grandmother would never let him go too far. Since my uncle could remember, the mailman had always been friendly to him, always greeting him on his daily route to their house with a wave and a smile. My grandma would notice their small encounters while my uncle was playing with friends in the yard, but it looked like a simple hello and goodbye, so she never thought much of it. One day, a little girl reported to her parents that the mailman had asked her if she wanted to go into his house. The girl's parents tipped off the police, and they started to watch the man. Eventually, they ended up searching his house, and inside they found hundreds of black and white photos of children in the neighborhood, including my uncle. The man was taken to jail, but was out shortly because they didn't really have much on him besides being a major creeper. The local post office soon fired him, and he moved away from the town. Since then, my uncle hasn't seen or heard of him, and neither has any of his childhood friends. So, creepy mailman, let's not meet. Ever. Please. Creepy mailman. Okay, so a little background. This happened probably around 7 years ago when I was 13. My mom had just got married maybe 2 years before to my now stepdad, Greg, who also had a daughter. We'll call her Lucy. She was 9. When my mom and Greg got married, we moved into a pretty big neighborhood. It had a pool with playgrounds and such, fairly close to the house. So one day, I believe it was Saturday to be exact, Lucy wanted to go to the playground to play, so I agreed to take her. I got my bike and Lucy rode on the handlebars, occasionally getting off and walking beside me. This took us about 10 to 15 minutes to get there, so we weren't far from my house. So we get to the playground, and I sit in the swings, while Lucy did whatever she was doing, playing in the sand, the jungle gym, etc. During this time, a mall truck pulls up right next to the playground and proceeds to just watch and stare at us. I thought it was pretty weird, but I didn't think much of it at first. I also don't recognize the mailman. The usual mailman was an older guy who was very friendly. The guy parked at the playground was a younger guy. After about 10 minutes of him just staring at us, Lucy comes over and goes, "Hey, Emily, why is the mailman sitting over there?" I respond with, "I don't know, how about you ask him?" He was only about 50 feet from us, but Lucy yelled to him, "What are you doing?" And the man just responded with, "Watching you." We immediately just looked at each other and I whispered to her, "Well, that's weird." Thinking back on it, the way he said it makes me shiver. It was extremely creepy. I've always been extremely street smart since I was very little, and I didn't like the vibe I was getting from this guy, so I decided it was time that we left. We walked over to my bike, not looking in this guy's direction at all, and started to leave. I was pedaling slowly on my bike while Lucy was walking beside me. After about 30 seconds, I stopped and looked behind me. The mailman was following us and stopped when I stopped to look back. This continued maybe about 6 times, and each time I looked back, I would always give him the rudest and weirded out looks. I told Lucy to hop on my bike handles, and we noped the hell out of there. I pedaled fast enough to turn on this one corner and go up some random person's driveway and hide behind some bushes without him seeing. The supposed mailman drove past, and after a few minutes, we quickly went back to my house. I never told my mom, and I don't think Lucy was ever really frightened, to be honest. Mostly because she didn't know what was going on. She was ditzy. Fast forward a couple months later, there was something on the news or in the newspaper. I don't remember exactly. It was my mom telling me about it. It was about some guy in a white van who attempted to get girls to come in it. And it happened in my neighborhood. The girls ran home and naturally told their parents. I didn't really think anything of it until the guy was actually found, and they showed his picture on the news. Guess who? The mailman. I kind of just stared in disbelief. I didn't tell my mom or anyone actually until right now. I was just kind of thought to myself, whoa, that's crazy. I was out and put myself in a lot of dangerous situations when I was younger, so I guess that's why it didn't faze me so much. I honestly forgot about it too until a couple years ago when I found this subreddit, and I've been meaning to post it for a while now. I'm not sure what that guy was doing in a mail truck or how he had one, but I'm glad I didn't end up in it that day. Also, I'm not sure what ever happened to him. I was 13 and didn't care much about the news, so I didn't stay updated. But I'll try to find some articles. So, creepy mailman. Let's never meet again.